Welcome back. Algebra 1, 2-3, solving multi-step equations. It's the Mastermind channel. Here we go. 7 steps from solving multi-step equations. We're going to write down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'll go through each of these. Number 1, get rid of grouping symbols. And grouping symbols, that's parentheses, that's brackets, braces, and also fraction bars. So we're going to eliminate parentheses with the distributive property, and we're going to eliminate fractions by multiplying by the denominator. So right here, distributive property, we get 6a minus 15 is equal to 35, parentheses gone. Over here we have a fraction bar that covers the entire expression. That's like parentheses and dividing by 13. So we're going to multiply each side by 13. Don't have to write down these examples. It's just to show you how to get rid of the fraction bar. Now I have 7x minus 5 equals 3 times 13. I'm having a little trouble with my pen here today. Okay. Get rid of grouping symbols. Next step 2, combine like terms. Now I'll say first on the left, then on the right. That's just to help you remember that we can only simplify each side at a time. I can't simplify the two sides together. So here we have 2a and 3a. I can't add or subtract the 4a from those two. So I'm going to put 3a and 2a together, gives me 5a. And then negative 5 and positive 2. Combine those two, we get negative 3. On the other side, we have 4 and negative 7 gives me negative 4a minus 3. All right. If there's a variable on both sides, step 3, get rid of one of them. Now here's my tip. Getting rid of the smaller variable usually leaves you with a positive term to work with. So I can get rid of, it doesn't matter, you can pick either one. My recommendation is get rid of the smaller one. If I subtract 2a from each side, this cancels out. I carry down 1a, or a plus 4 is equal to negative 5. On this, I'll show you the other example. If I get rid of the 3a, subtract 3a here, we'll get 4 is equal to negative 1a minus 5. And I am not having fun with this pen right now. Alright, that should say negative 1a minus 5. Alright. Next step. Circle the variable term. These are my instructions to prevent some mistakes. 2. Including its sign, so notice here there's a 4a, but it's a negative 4a. So we're going to circle the entire variable term. If there was a fraction in front of it, if this was 3/4, I would circle negative 3/4 y. Next step. Number 5, undo what's outside the circle. So I call this a safety circle. That way you don't mess with the variable term first. We're going to add 5 to each side. Over here, outside the circle, notice we're subtracting 4a, but the 3 is positive. So I'm going to subtract 3. That safety circle helps you also not accidentally add 3 just because there's a minus here. Subtract 3. Same thing over here. This is a negative 3y, but we're going to subtract 4 because the 4 is positive. Next step, undo what's inside the circle. So now I have 2 times x inside the circle. I'm going to divide by 2. Remember, whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other side. Divide by negative 4, because a is being multiplied by negative 4. And now here we're going to divide by negative 3 on each side, because we're multiplying by negative 3. Alright, and then finally we're going to solve. So once I have that, 2 divided by 2 is x, 20 divided by 2 is 10. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 leaves me with a. And negative 3. Please pay attention to your negatives. Negative 3y divided by negative 3 is y. And 16 divided by negative 3, my answer is going to be negative. 3 goes into 16 5 times. That's 15, so it leaves a remainder of 1/3. I would recommend you practice working with fractions. It's at times easier than using decimals and more accurate. So here we have an example. Circle the variable term. Add 4 to each side. I should say 4. 11x is equal to 33. Now what was inside the circle carries down. We divide by 11. This cancels out, and x is equal to 3. Here's an example with a fraction bar. Pen's going crazy again. This is a division, so we're going to multiply by 8 on each side. This cancels out. A plus 7 is equal to 40. And finally, here's our variable. Subtract what's outside the circle. And a is equal to 33. Hiroshi is buying a pair of water skis that are on sale for 2/3 of the original price. After he uses a $25 gift certificate, the total cost before taxes is $115. Now, key is after he uses the $25 gift certificate. What was the original price of the skis? Write an equation for the problem. Solve the equation. All right, so 2/3 of the original price. I could write O, but O tends to look like a 0, so I won't use O. I'll use P. And then he uses a $25 gift card. So 2/3 of the price, and then minus the $25 is equal to $115. To solve this, circle the variable term, add 25 to each side, and then we have 2/3 P is equal to 115. Remember how to get rid of fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal, times 3/2, times 3/2, and to multiply by a fraction, multiply by the top, divide by the bottom. So 115 times 3. Oh, I made a mistake. And I know you guys would have pointed this out in class as I went. I forgot to add. I was getting ahead of myself. 115 plus 25 is 140. Times 3 is 420. Divided by 2 is 210. The original cost of the skis was $210. Next, we're looking at consecutive integers. Make yourself a little chart. We're looking at consecutive integers, consecutive even, and consecutive odd integers. I'll show you an example, and I'll come back to this screen. Okay? Looking for the sum of 3 consecutive integers that comes out to 48. So, here we have a first integer, and then a second, and a third, and together they add to 48. Well, consecutive means that it's directly the number following it. So I have the first number, n, and then whatever that first number is, let's say it's 20, the next number would be 21. Obviously, that's not the case, but the next number is that first number plus 1. And then the third one is that first number plus 2. So then to solve this, I'm going to say that's 1, 2, 3, n, combined like terms, plus 1 plus 2, 3 equals 48. Subtract safety circle, subtract 3 from each side. 3n is equal to 45. Divide by 3 on each side. and n is equal to 15. So, consecutive integers, n plus 1 plus n plus 2, and so on, depending on how many consecutive integers they want. Consecutive even integers. So, we're finding the sum of 3 consecutive even integers. That comes out to 72. We have a first integer, second, third. Now, even numbers like 2, 4, 6. To get from 2 to 4, I don't have to add just 1, I have to add 2. So, my first number plus 2. And then to get from my first number, like 2, 4, 6, to the third number, I have to add 4. So, then to solve this, we get n, that's 3n in this case, plus 2 and 4 is 6 equals 72. Circle 3n, subtract 6. Subtract 6 from each side. 3n is equal to 66. Divide by 3 on each side, and n is equal to 22. So those three numbers are 22, 24, and 26. And consecutive odd integers, you'd think, well, is the first one plus 1? Well, to get from 1 to 3, I also have to add 2. So it's also n plus 2. Solve this. Our three integers are, again, 1, 2, 3 n's, and 2 and 4 gives us 6, equals negative 51. So now subtract 6 from each side. We get 3n is equal to negative 60. Divide by 3. N is negative 20. So here we have negative 20 as our first number. Negative 20 plus 2 is negative 18. Negative 20 plus 4 is negative 16 as our three numbers. So here's our summary. Consecutive integers, consecutive even, consecutive odd integers. And that's all, folks.